I would like to believe that I have played a role in the present government's energy strategy. NSIT experience was, I think, one of the most pivotal moments in my life. The most important thing is to start networking through LinkedIn. There are a few teams which actively look for interns. The opportunities that they get to be in meetings with senior government officials in the ministry or C-suite executives, and that way I feel Invest India is a great place for interns. It's a very simple answer. It's discipline. Often it's about the school wanting a certain kind of batch.
Hi, Deepanshu.
Hi Shweta, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Same here, and it gives me great pleasure to have this conversation with you. You are going to inspire a lot of people who want to work in the social impact space, people who want to study in Europe, and this combination of being an engineer, going into social impact, and now doing an MBA, it's going to be something that a lot of people are going to look up to you for. So, thank you for
Thank you
doing
so
this.
much. Yeah. I mean, you're being very kind. Thank you so much, Shweta, um, for everything, for not just the preparation bit, but also sending me to the right people during the application process.
I'm so glad things worked out the way they did. But Dipanshu, we never really sat down to talk about your earlier experiences in life. So how did NSIT happen? What were your best experiences there? What did you make out of the NSIT experience?
Right. So, NSIT, I graduated from NSIT as Netaji Subhash Institute of Technology back in 2016. So it's been 8 years now. I joined the college like any other, stereotypical Indian kid. I was told to, prepare for JEE and AIEEE, which used to be conducted back then. And I was studious, and I did get into a couple of good NITs and DTU, BITS Pilani, and NSIT. But that way, I've been very chill about most of my decisions. Most of my friends were joining NSIT. So, and I have spent a lot of time in Rajasthan. So the idea of spending a few more years in a desert didn't rest well with me. So I wanted to have a good time in college, and most of my best friends from primary school were also going to be there. So I was looking forward to being in NSIT. Also, the fact that it's placed in Delhi made me feel very confident about its placements and being in sync with what the industry requires. So that's how NSIT happened. Also, I have always been, I have always maths has always been a very strong suit for me. Theoretical maths and applied mathematics. And electronics and communication engineering is one branch in which there's a lot of maths involved. That was something that I was targeting in NSIT, and I have fortunately got that. NSIT experience was, I think, one of the most pivotal moments in my life. I think coming of age experience, I would say. It was the first time that I was outside the shelter of outside my home, away from my parents. And that way, I was able to take decisions for myself and explore things which I never knew about myself, especially in the creative side. I was very active with societies, clubs, and curriculars. Made great friends, a network which I still am proud of, and it still comes to rescue during rainy days. So yes, NSIT was a great experience for me, I would say, and it did lead me to the next part of my journey, which was entrepreneurship, right after college. So yeah.
You got into startup mode straight after college, no?
Yes, so I won't call it a startup. I won't want to, make it sound fancy. We were a typical brick and mortar business of solar energy. Um my company's name was Soul Connect, and I started right after my college. Yes.
So, fun fact about NSIT, I started working in the test prep industry in 2003. So, I have completed 21 years this year.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
when I first started off, the first few years, I worked almost exclusively with NSIT kids.
Wow.
And I found them to be so naughty, but also very bright. And we'd often, after class, share a metro ride. So I'd get to see the naughty side of them a lot. And recently, one of them visited me with his wife and kid. Now he has a 10-year-old son.
Wow.
So I saw second generation. And he was like, now I want you to mentor my kid so that he can go to Ivy League at undergrad. So it feels really weird, but also very heartwarming to now see the second generation and then NSIT Connect.
No, that's lovely. I mean, if that's, I think, a biggest compliment for somebody who's, responsible for so many people's future and career. That someone gets their own kid for mentorship.
Yeah,
I think that's
it was very heartwarming to be given the responsibility for a 10-year-old.
absolutely, yeah.
So NSIT always has a special place for me for that reason because that's where I began. So once you got into the solar energy business, you moved from there to Invest India, isn't it?
Yes,
What sparked that decision?
right. So, solar energy was going well till COVID hit us. It's not a very work from home friendly business, right? And a lot of orders were stalled. Along with that, there were also a couple of policy flip flops that happened in the Indian energy policy, uh, because of which it was becoming very difficult for a business to sustain. And during COVID, I had to sort of take up an additional job just to, be mentally sane. So that's when I also had a brief stint in Snapdeal
Mhm.
for 10 months, where I was the lead data analyst for their big data orders. And once Snapdeal got over, and the lockdown was still in operation, I think it was second or the third wave. And we tried and complete our existing orders. So at that point of time, the business, once we brought it back to steady state, I had a discussion with my co-founder on how we want to take it forward. And that business by then had become the projects had become very repetitive in nature for me, so I wanted to broaden my energy portfolio. And because of the whole policy flip flop, when this opportunity of Invest India uh, you know, f- came in front of me, I thought that this is a good way for me to go beyond my role of operational energy experience and get a flavor of how the regulatory setup works in the energy space. And that's what led me to join Invest India. I was initially thinking of just working on the solar sector, but I'm quite happy with my 2 years here because I've gone beyond solar, and I would like to believe that I have played a role in the present government's energy strategy.
That
So,
is so
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, thank
So,
you.
a lot of people look at Invest India, whether it's an internship opportunity or
Yes,
a working opportunity, as a profile building move.
yes,
Um, I would like, now that you've resigned, I would like you to throw a light on this. Um, there are people I've heard come back and say, I applied for an internship, but I had nothing to do. There was no one to mentor me. So I spent 3 months doing nothing. There are people who have actually been able to join good projects and learn, create impact. So if I want to be an intern at Invest India, number one, how should I score that internship? That's question number one. And I'm asking this more from like an undergrad student's need and perspective. So once I score that internship, how do I make sure that it counts, that it's not time pass?
right. Great question. Because so I joined just to keep things very clear and give some sort of perspective. I joined Invest India as a manager, and I got promoted fortunately last year as a senior manager. I was leading the energy practice, and during the course of these 2 years, I had I think six interns at various point of time, which who were working with my team. And you know what? I think one of them was an intern from whom I have learned quite a lot. He has got, I won't take his name, but he has gone on. He was in third year DTU back then, and he's now gone on to start a carbon credit startup, which is now
Oh,
being funded by Shell. Uh,
amazing.
so so that's the kind of opportunity that one gets at Invest India.
Mhm.
While what you're saying is true, and even I had similar experiences, as a second year, third year engineering student. When I was interning, often I won't have any guidance. I won't really get uh, tasks with a vision. They would be ad hoc tasks. So
Mhm.
coming now, given having laid this perspective, I'll come to your questions. First being that how does one score that internship? So I would say the most important thing is to start networking with people through LinkedIn. A lot of my Invest India batchmates, colleagues are very active on LinkedIn. There are a few teams which actively look for interns,
Mhm.
which are not very, which are sector agnostic and open to all sorts of profiles. So it's very important to build that connection with them uh, through LinkedIn. And then I think once that is done, it's a waiting game where you have to wait for that internship opportunity to arise. It's not very regular, like it's not that happens every May or June, like it happens in a lot of companies. This is a rolling internship that happens
Mhm.
in Invest India. The second aspect is what does one do here uh, as an intern, right? So I think there, while it's the prerogative of the team, I would say, interns are the lowest link in the chain. So I would never fault them for not getting good projects. It's always a manager and the team's responsibility to ensure that they have the right morale. But what one can do, and what I feel an intern can do, is even if they have spare time, uh, you using that time within the office effectively is, I think, very important. So even within the office, trying to just understand how the business is working, like how each department is working with each other, what are the company's objectives, and how does each department align towards those objectives, and then speaking to people to understand their journey, their strengths, build skills, maybe take up their own projects if they feel that there is, they are, but they're not being utilized efficiently, and they can, do much more than what the regular tasks are. Maybe go and, suggest a project that they would want to take up. And that way I feel Invest India is a great place for interns, because the opportunities that they get to be in meetings with uh, senior government officials in the ministry or C-suite executives. Um, I think those are unparalleled. I haven't seen too many organizations which provide one this kind of an opportunity.
Absolutely, to be able to see how those links work, how does the chain actually work. That's a privilege.
Yeah.
And if I want to get placed at Invest India from college, what should I do? And I'm asking this less for an NSIT DTU kid. I'm asking this more for a Delhi University kid who probably comes from a less branded college, a no brand, no name college, and is wondering, I don't have to, the college is not going to be able to get me internships and placements.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of immediate seniors to guide me. What should I do?
I think, again, I will be very candid with you here. I think getting into Invest India is a challenge, but a bigger challenge is to know what you have to do in Invest India also.
Mhm.
Uh, s- but that's a separate question. Getting in, even if you, so engineers are not very common to find in Invest India. Most students are from Delhi University or from a uh, humanities, liberal arts background. And usually, straight out of college, it's a little difficult to get in. Most people who come to Invest India have some years of experience, probably 1.5, 2 years of experience before they come in as an associate in the organization, or they have completed their masters. However, there are a few people who have come straight from colleges which are not very well branded, but I do see them as being exceptional individuals and professionals.
Mhm.
For example, their entrepreneurial ability is much more than the normal lot. I can give you an example. I receive a lot of these messages asking for jobs and internships. There was this one person who had just sent me a reel, a 15-second reel of what their resume is and why they want to work at Invest India. And in today's day and age, glancing over a piece of paper, I would rather watch a reel than glance over
That's
a piece
smart.
of paper. So that was really smart, right? So that was really smart. Secondly, I think a big mistake that a lot of people do is not research about the organization enough. I was mentioning a key component which I feel is important for networking as well as landing any job. Instead of writing a very generic, cover letter that or statement of purpose that I like problem solving and I'm really hardworking, I have great integrity and all. What one needs to understand is a what the company is doing, and second, how do they from a personal standpoint and from a professional standpoint can help achieve those objectives of the organization. So two simple questions that one has to answer: what is it that they want from the company, and what is it that they bring to the table, and the harmony in these two. And one, I think, a very simple thing is in Invest India is not into financial modeling or transactions. I know the name is a misnomer, but this is something that we clearly look at because a lot of students write to us saying that we are interested in doing mergers and acquisitions and transactions and all these things, and that's a giveaway that you haven't networked enough or haven't really understood our work enough. So yeah.
This is very insightful, Dipanshu. Now tell me, um, with everything that was happening in West India was going so well, how did MBA come into the picture?
Right. So, because I think the business, when the business had faced turbulence during COVID, that is when I felt that there were a lot of gaps in my business application. I mean, to be very honest, business is will always be driven to some extent through instincts and intuition,
Mm.
but I wanted more structure in the way we operated. That is when I think the first seed of MBA cropped in my mind. I do and I did have a lot of batchmates who have had very conventional profiles of being in MBBs and then going on to pursue their MBA. So I always used to hear from them their experience in a business school. Um, but then for me personally, I wanted to do my MBA when I get that inner calling that yes, there is a clear reason why I'm wanting to do it, not just for a career progress or an upgrade or a promotion. So that is the I think the first instance when I thought of doing an MBA. Now during Invest India, that reason sort of crystallized even more when I would make these investment pitches to a lot of foreign investors, and we would make those in what we call the India pitch, where we would be showcasing India as a great investment destination. Uh, but I would always wonder what really happens in once they go back, and how do they evaluate geographies and businesses. So that curiosity made me, think of doing an MBA even more. And especially because my aim is that I want to grow within the energy sector, um, and of course use that experience to also help the social impact space. So now, having gained an operational and a regulatory experience, the next logical step for me was to also get the finance side. Uh, so that is how it organically led to me looking at an MBA, and not just any MBA, but in a specific geography and of a specific kind.
So why did you decide to apply to European schools?
European schools, I decided to apply because largely most of the technological revolution, if you see in the renewable energy space,
Mm-hmm.
and the I would say climate consciousness to a very
Mm-hmm.
deep rooted level, and thirdly the inclination to put money in this,
Mm-hmm.
even money in this, despite not having the best returns right now. So that culture was more, I have seen more in Europe as compared to any other place in the world. I think Japan also is a good example. But then through my businesses, through my work, I have seen this happening in Europe much more than in other places. Like climate change, is always been, a very contentious topic world over, right? Sustainable development and climate change. So there, if there is any region which goes beyond profits and looks at the long term impact beyond the monetary value, it's Europe, I feel.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So when you decided that now it's time to pursue an MBA, you would need a GMAT score. How did you go about preparing for the GMAT? And you had a score of 720 on your own. How did that happen? How did you prepare?
Right. So I took the GMAT 4 times. It wasn't an easy journey for me because it was also during my professional transition phase from Soul Connect to Invest India. I did take services from various places, but somehow I felt that the increase from my base level wasn't much because of these place services that I was undertaking. Uh, and then finally, I think I spoke to a couple of my seniors who had already taken the exam and gone for their MBAs to global B schools, and they just told me, keep it simple, go back to the basics, which is your verbal and quant analysis. Do your practice online. Just use the official guidebook. Don't use too many sources, and focus on quality and not quantity. Right? So don't, because these are very expensive resources, and the they take a lot of effort in designing a question. So don't waste that question. So the idea was that I will stick to just 20 questions in a day, maybe. And work was also such that I could not do more.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so just stick to 20 questions, but then analyze them really well. So use the official guide, use the GMAT Club resources to not just see on how you are selecting the answer, but also how are you eliminating the other choices. And then, of course, good hygiene, which you also advocate quite a lot, is to maintain a proper, error sheet where you're able to list down reasons on why you are going wrong. Then I think second aspect was the temperament during the exam uh, and the test taking ability. So that was something that uh, came in a little later for me. I think that's always been my Achilles heel. that I might prepare very well, but over there I just zone out sometimes. So those were a few things that I you know didn't stress too much about. I thought that okay, fine, this is an exam, and I'll give it my best, and I'll enjoy the process. So that was my GMAT journey, and yeah, I had a split of V40 and a Q49. Uh, so and then we had analyzed our ESRs also together. So
Yes. So I still somehow feel that if we had the opportunity, we would have really worked on that score. But all's well that ends well. So no regrets there in
yeah,
the long run. But tell me, what was then the application process like for
right. No, I agree with you. I think I could have scored much more.
you?
I could have converted that Q49 into a Q50, and if I had sustained the V40, then I would have had a better score. But then, I mean, great. I already thought that I'm going to be 30, so do the MBA right now. So that was the primary reason. Um, so your question was on the
About the
school
application
application process.
journey.
So application journey, I would say again, I was recommended a certain like academic counselor consultant by some people, but that didn't really work out well because I have an unconventional profile, and I think nothing against them. It always has to be a match in the energy of a academic consultant and the candidate, right? And that way I feel your role in my journey at that point of time was very important, where you helped me get connected to Mansi. uh,
I'm so
so
glad that happened.
I mean, yes, and Mansi also has this crazy energy about her. Initially, one might think that okay, does she even remember me? But the each second that then that she puts in to not just look at your application but to evaluate your journey and you as a person, I think was wonderful. I mean, there were things about my life which I never really thought of as a failure or as a success that she brought out. She, in fact, went out of her way to also get a third perspective from a very senior partner in a top tier consulting company to advise me on my applications and prepare me for the interview. So the application process uh, was very I think now I know the blueprint that she follows, which I was able to then also implement, is to first and evaluate yourself and your objectives, and then see how the school uh, aligns to it, and if it does or not. So I can say this, that when I was beginning my application process, I had a certain dream school, but by the end of it had changed completely.
Um,
So
That's
yeah.
very meaningful because a lot of people just follow the herd mentality. It's so important to know that your vision and what the school is about, that there's a synergy, and you're not
Yes.
just doing something because others are doing
Yeah, absolutely. And again, networking over there also is critical for to make your essays good, because GMAT
it.
is of course an absolutely important metric, but then your creativity and you as a person is only reflected through the essays,
Mm,
and
mm,
that and there it's very important to network with students. And
mm,
there I would say there's one thing that I try to do is I would network with three kinds of people from the school. One were the current students, one who had just graduated, let's say, for whom it's just been 2 years since they've graduated from their B school, and then there were others who had already spent 7+ years. And to all three of them, my questions would be very different
mhm,
on what they still feel about the school.
mhm.
Uh, so and then also targeting those kind of seniors and students who have a very similar profile and have gone to similar places, similar
You did this
companies.
for each school that you were applying for?
Yes, yes.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
it was a lot of work. But then I also felt the culture of the school through this process.
Mm.
Are the students, being helpful enough, forthcoming enough with their inputs or not? Are they, so those small cultural bits also I could sense uh,
Mm.
through this
No,
process.
I'm so glad we are talking about this because very few people do this kind of research, frankly. Like I said, it's a lot of herd mentality that goes around. In fact, if somebody has applied to, let's say, top 10 in a particular area and they get invites from, let's say, number four and number five, there'll be such a big debate around it. But I don't
Yeah.
think they do this kind of research. And I wish more people did because it's the culture, it's what you carry outside, it's what happens to you in the long run. There's so much that is more important than just the ranking or the name of the school.
May I ask you one question on this?
Yes, yes.
Do you feel that this aspect of networking, and this is even right now, partner in a top tier firm had told me this, that networking doesn't come very naturally to Indians.
Yes.
uh, so I don't know, but from your experience, do you feel that international students do this a lot more than what Indian applicants do, or is this just I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't know the comparison. I don't know whether international students do this more than Indians, but I know that those who do, they get the maximum benefit out of the process. And I completely agree that networking doesn't come naturally to a lot to most Indians. So when I see an international student, I find them very natural networkers because by the age of 18, you've left the house, you're responsible for yourself. You are responsible for building your own support system. The
Right,
Indian is spoon fed, the Indian is cocooned. So even if
right,
you go to college, your parents are still, they have your back.
right.
So, whereas maybe the American kid knows that I have to fund my own way in life. Maybe most of them won't have money to go to college.
Yeah,
So, the kind of grassroots level struggle they have to do in creating their own support systems. The Indians don't have to. We are a
yeah,
lot more entitled. And I think networking doesn't come to entitled people.
yeah. Even college, we have structured placements. I mean, at least the engineering
Yeah.
colleges do. Whereas for business, global business school, from what I've heard, that maximum you'll have is a career fair or some HR coming to your campus. But then it's on you to build that network and get that job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it is, in fact, a lot of the student communities who go pitch their batch, their cohort to the companies and they bring the companies to campus. So it's a major cultural shift.
Right.
And I think it's not just Indian, it's probably Asian. I also know that Vietnamese culture is pretty similar to Indian culture.
Okay.
So
Okay.
a lot of the South Asian culture where we are very family driven, we are protected. We know that our family has our back no matter what. We are probably our undergrads are sponsored by families.
Yeah.
So we don't get up on our feet till much later in life.
Yes.
The kind of responsibility you might have at the age of 30, an American might have at the age of 18, right? So that's why you'll find their maturity levels differ a lot. So in
Yeah.
that sense, yes. But the Indians who do network, I have seen one crazy example of the benefit of networking. You may have heard of Ronak Pitsaria. He studied at IIT KGP and he graduated from HBS. So Ronak had a 710 on the GMAT and he applied to HBS on his own because no consultant was ready to work with him in applying
Yeah.
to HBS with a 710. And so he had no choice. He spent 3 years networking with alumni and outcomes. And he applied only to Stanford and HBS. So round one, he applied to Stanford. And he didn't expect anything, but he got an interview call.
Oh,
That
wow.
motivated him to apply to HBS in round two. In round two, he got waitlisted. And the whole world told him that nobody converts an HBS waitlist with 710. But he was so passionate about it. He wrote to them with daily updates of what he's doing on the network, how he's following up with what's happening at HBS, what is he learning, what is he dreaming about. That his passion moved the adcom. and he converted a round two waitlist of 7 times, which is unbelievable. So if you network and if you're very clear that this is where this energy is, this is really where I want to go, I don't see why it's not going to happen. And I don't think scores are a deterrent at that point.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story.
I strongly believe that if you have taken GMAT or GRE 3, 4, 5 times, I doubt your score is going to change because they're aptitude tests. So as
Yeah,
long as you followed the correct process, if your process has been correct, you've genuinely studied and taken these exams, after the few attempts, maybe you should shift focus to applying and giving that your best shot.
right.
And that's exactly what you did. That was a smart move.
Yeah, I mean, I had to strengthen my other aspects of the profile, so I had no option.
So
Yeah.
how did that happen? Did you actually work on profile building with an MBA in mind?
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, it may not sound very good because you're working in an organization, but I feel that it was good for the organization as well.
Mhm.
At Invest India, when I had joined, I was aware. As I mentioned, the MBA seed had started to take shape back then when I was joining Invest India. But then I definitely was, I would say, very driven towards my work then. I was going beyond the call of duty at my workplace. I could get that recognition from my seniors. I could do this kind of work where I would not have to hesitate my senior ups to give me a letter of recommendation. And often getting those recommendations on their own was there. And to an extent that now not just an MBA, but because of the work that I've done, I have also built a network, um, which in the energy space in India, and there are companies with who have sounded me out that once whenever you want to come and work with us, do let us know. So yes, it was a very, I would say, selfish reason uh, to build a profile, but I think that worked wonders for not just me but for the organization and all my clients as well. So to come back how I did it, so INSEAD, for example, was one of my dream schools, and European schools in general value a lot of international experience. And I did not have any because my solar experience was just curtailed to a few states in India. But then I went out of the way in my workspace to get that international experience. So I was fortunate enough to be selected by the government of India to lead the World Economic Forum delegation in 2024. Sorry, 2023. And then I also went very recently for the World Hydrogen Summit to Rotterdam. So these things I could then bridge as much as I could, right? As much as was possible through Invest India, get that international experience, and working on policy, publishing reports, that bit. So LORs I've already mentioned. So these few things which I felt were very important for my profile, and this is something very personal. One has to identify what are the lacunas in their profile and leverage either the workplace or go beyond the workplace also through extracurriculars to address them. So yeah.
So what was your interview experience like with all these places?
My interview experience. So I was interviewed by LBS, Kellogg, and IESE. I think the best interview was with Kellogg. Second best, I think, was IESE, and LBS was okay. It wasn't that great. So all three were very different experiences. But for me, interview has not been a very big issue uh, because my role is of primarily sales role. It's a primarily sales role where I have to network a lot, pitch to clients a lot. So it always seems like a good conversation that I'm having. Of course, I would prepare a lot for them. Before I went in for my interview, I would go scan my resume 10 times and try and link each bit, not just state them but also link the motivation behind each, and prepare myself really well for all questions possible. And that's where I think Mansi also helped really a lot by providing me those question banks. But the interviews were very nice. They're all good people who are not looking at grilling you. They are only looking at understanding your journey and whether your stories are genuine or not. Uh, so I think that was my learning. The LBS interview was late in the morning. It was at 1:30 a.m. So I think that was a little that and it was a very busy day at work for me, so I was a little fatigued by then. But even that was a very good interview, and I'm still in good touch with the interviewer.
Oh,
Uh,
that's so nice.
yeah, so no, I would send them LinkedIn requests immediately after the interview and keep messaging them, checking with them. I think I became good friends with all the three schools interviewers by the end of the process, despite what the outcome was.
But I say give you a scholarship, right?
Yes,
How
they
much?
gave me a 25% scholarship. So yeah, so
That's pretty neat.
that also helped in the decision.
Yes, generally male candidates don't see too much generosity, so anything is a good bonus. So tell me, Dipanshu, if you were to give any advice to yourself, your younger version, okay, let's say you're 25-year-old, what would that advice be?
My 25-year-old. So I I don't know. I think everything happens for a reason. Uh, you know, uh, I won't change much. I don't have any regrets. Um, I made the move. I believe in enjoying the moment, living in the moment, and doing your bit. So that has always remained the same. So maybe I would say towards the GMAT, I could have done a little better. Uh, you know, I again, if I had a little more time, if I would have been reapplying, then I would have tried and improved that Q49 to Q50. But that's about it. Other than that, I would not want to go and change anything, because even if my profile was, let's say, unconventional, or if there were a few uh, limitations in my profile for a B school, uh, it's okay. I mean, that's what shaped me, so I won't take it back.
What you're calling limitations, a lot of people call profile building. That I ran a business, I worked at Invest India, all of these are things people want deliberately to build their profiles for these things.
No, I think so. From my workplace, a lot of people have gotten into very good schools as well. They've all had very different journeys. So I would say that, and it may be completely wrong. A seasoned admissions consultant or someone who interacts with a lot of students like you may be able to give a better advice here. But I feel that even if someone has a very conventional profile, it's not about you trying to tick boxes. Even though I did a lot of those things, but by the end of it, I realized through these networking sessions with seniors that often it's about the school wanting a certain kind of batch, right? So it's about them wanting to create a batch which is well represented, which has certain attributes. So one should not fret too much about it. They should be genuine in their uh, in the things that they want to highlight, and not just do it for the sake of it. So if someone is ticking a box in that profile building bit, if it's not genuine enough, it'll come out. So to give you an example, and I think we have discussed this bit earlier, we had a small chat about Pogo, right? So one thing which I was discussing with Mansi as well was that I am an avid animal lover. Like I rescue injured stray animals and all, and because I come from a decent background, my entire family tries to look after them, and this has been happening since I was 13 or 14 year old, and I've been bitten by dogs and all also in this process. But still, my heart goes out to them. Uh, But this is something which in India is very difficult to record on your CV, right? Unless you go to a dog shelter or some NGO and you do it beyond your office hours, it doesn't get recorded. And I feel that the Western society that way does record all these things uh, during your entire childhood, teenage years, college years. But then it's fine. I mean, I would still do it. Even if I cannot highlight it in my profile for my business school application, that's okay. Rather than trying to do it for 2 months and then putting it on a CV and then building a profile.
It's important to be authentic.
Yeah,
Otherwise, life seems so pre-programmed. And, when life is not authentic, my learning has been that when you're chasing that profile, you end up with an imposter syndrome.
right,
And in fact, that's a discussion we didn't get into, maybe because from NSIT you went into solar space. So you were somewhere tech related. But a lot of people who go to the top tier engineering schools, they know from day one that they're not going to pursue engineering as a career or do
yeah,
anything science related. And their 4 or 5 years of engineering, they are living like imposters.
correct,
Many,
absolutely,
many times that imposter syndrome carries forward into their life. So one of the greatest challenges I have seen when these candidates then come to us to take the GMAT and GRE, these are psychometric tests. So you have
yes,
fooled the world at your engineering college. You fooled the world as interns, okay? And when you got placed, you got the non-engineering placement. You went to fintech, you got into a startup, or you went to PVC consulting, so on. So you're finally doing what you thought you would do because you wanted that good placement, you wanted day zero and all that stuff. And that imposter syndrome carries forward because even if you are at consulting, you feel these guys have hired me, they're paying me so much, but do I really know this job? I have to show to my team, my bosses, my clients that I know, but do I really know? Because that's how I spent the
right,
last 5 years, second guessing myself.
yeah,
And while you can do this, in all these circumstances, you sit down in front of a psychometric test, which after all just has verbal and quant. It's not rocket science. You've done tougher things in life. And all of that imposter syndrome comes crashing out. So
yeah,
something which is as simple as a reading comprehension passage looks so impossible.
right, yeah,
Okay? And you can't fool those exams. So it's been very interesting learning how to navigate this and help people work with this background, which is why we are trying to bring in more elements of psychometric, more elements of psychology into what we are doing. But this is
wow,
very real. And this is the top tier colleges of India are
yeah.
producing this problem. That's the reality I live with every day since I work with your peer group.
That's a very interesting insight. I mean, yeah,
So I think in being authentic, in deciding that I want to do something which is related to my passion, which is solar, and then you organically followed up with what you did with Invest India.
yes,
That was also
yes,
not really like a pre-planned profile building move that if I do this,
yeah,
then I go to this school. So you've been saved a lot of that heartache. Thank you.
yeah. I would like to believe that. That's why when you asked me what would I do if I was a 25-year-old, I won't really change much because I enjoyed it when I was doing it. It may not, and it wasn't all. I'm happy that I didn't have that pressure on me that okay, I'm doing this for an MBA profile. I did it because I enjoyed it. Whether it translates into an MBA profile or not was something that I didn't think back then. I was too ignorant that way.
You were blessed because now we have people in their third year, fourth year engineering doing CFA for the profile building. It's
Oh God.
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm so glad that your advice to people who want to follow in your footsteps is to be authentic, to be themselves, to enjoy the process.
Yes. Yes.
But tell me, in the real terms, you know that the journey, you were saying that how GMAT was slightly compromised because you were working, navigating
Yes.
so much. So when you have to do test prep, full-time work, and yes, you need to perform well because you need those LORs.
Yeah.
You have to work on the application process. Now, all of this, they're all different directions that you get pulled into. So, how do you strike a balance? And how do you keep stress at bay? How do you manage stress levels?
I think it's a very important question, and striking that balance is not just important for one to achieve that good GMAT score, but I think, and it's easier said than done. I will be tested in my B school journey also, but to be able to balance these things and prioritize is very important. So, it's a very simple answer. It's discipline. Uh, Towards this, right? And sometimes, including me, I've been a victim of procrastination as well. But that is why I came to you. Because if there is someone who can, push me, and just not just you, but even the other people who were preparing with me in the class, I knew that, even if I am tired, but the other person who's there on the call with me, who's in the class with me, has good energy. So that would really lift all of us up. So because I would have a class with you every day, and there would be work after that. I had no choice but to, you know, have that discipline. Like, I had no choice. If I was just left to myself, I probably would have remained in my comfort zone of just going to work and, not focus on the classes, or not focus on the application. And some people are able to do it by themselves, which is really great. But then there are others who need that sort of prod from educators like you, or academic consultants like Mansi, to keep us in check. So I think that's my answer to it. I mean, as simple as that.
Really lovely, Deepanshu, having this conversation because I think beyond talking about Pogo, our love for animals, or a little bit on GMAT, we didn't really sit down to have a conversation. And now I can say I know Deepanshu, the person, and it's
Right.
been rewarding. It's been a rewarding experience. I'm so glad.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Shweta, and thank you for being a part of my journey. It was, I will not say that it was not stressful, but it was, I think, an enjoyable experience all in all, with everyone who's been part of this process. So I'm really grateful to everyone.
Wish you all the best with IC. And I'm so excited to see what you're going to do next, Deepanshu, because the mandate that you have, the mission that you have on green energy, that is what the world needs. So the world is looking at you.
Yes.
So we wish you all the best and we're excited
Thank
for
you so
you.
much. Thank you so much, Shweta.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast. For more such insightful content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.